So I asked this monk, we went for a walk up to the pakoras in the mountains over the Ganga there. This was in Gangotri. Why does this happen? We often see it. We all know of people who are experts in their field. You know, maybe your classmates or somebody who was the genius, but never made a name for himself or herself. And there was this other people who are not so good, but they become millionaires and big success. And so we all know such people. Why does it not work for someone? Why does it work so well for some others? Most of us are in the middle, actually. So he told us the story. It's a very nice story, which I'll share with you. So the story is starting now. So he said, Janaka Raja, the great emperor Janaka, father of Sita and all. So one day, somebody asked him, how is it that one man, you have got everything? You are an emperor. You are an enlightened person. So Janaka Raja is always known in our stories as a Brahmagyani, one who has attained knowledge of Brahman, is an enlightened person. You are an enlightened person. And the mother of the universe is your daughter, Sita. And God is your son-in-law, Rama. How does one person attain all of this? You are an emperor and you are an enlightened, you have realized Brahman and you are Jivan Mukta, free in this very life itself. The mother of the universe is your daughter and God is your son-in-law, Rama and Sita. How? And so Janaka thought, it's true. How did all this happen to me? I don't see myself as special. So at night he had this dream. Next, if you want an answer to your question, Janaka, start walking. Tomorrow and start walking to the west, and where the sun sets, there you will find a man, a yogi, who's sitting there and eating leaves. Ask him. He knows the answer to your question. He will tell you. So Janaka starts walking and walking and walking, and finally at the end of the day he's tired. He sees under there's a big tree. Under that there's a pile of dry leaves, and there's a yogi sitting there with matted hair eating dry leaves. And Janaka says, that's my man. And he goes there. Before he can say something, the yogi looks at him and he says, I know the answer to your question, Emperor Janaka. So he knows who he is and what the question is. But I won't tell you. You rest here tonight. Tomorrow in the morning, if you want to know the answer to your question, start walking to the west. And you keep walking and walking and walking till you find where the sun is setting. That will be the way it's said. Where the sun is setting, you will find a yogi who's eating ashes. He knows the answer. You ask him. Next morning, the emperor starts walking and walking and walking. By the way, we were walking while the story was being told. I got the feeling that the story was being prolonged for my benefit. Till this person I would take walks with, he would make stories last till sunset. Strangely enough, as sunset, the stories would come to abrupt ends, because it's got too dark. Anyway, so he finds this yogi sitting and eating ashes. And before he can say something exactly like that, and like the earlier incident, the yogi says, I know your question, Emperor Janaka, but I will not answer it. Tomorrow in the morning, if you really want to know the answer to your question, I'm not extending the story. This is exactly as it was told to me. I'm speeding it up a little bit. You have to keep walking to the west. You will finally come to a village where you will find in the village headman's house, a baby has been born. And the baby is going to die the same day. And that, this baby, go and ask this baby. The baby knows the answer to your question. The baby will tell you. The newborn baby. So Janaka starts walking and walking and walking. He comes to this village and he goes to the headman's house. The headman's delighted to have a visit from the emperor. He says, is it true that you have a newborn child? Yes, we have been blessed with a newborn child. Can I see the newborn child in private? He said, yes, please bless the child. And she goes to the newborn child and everybody leaves the room. And luckily their child doesn't tell him to take a walk again. So this child says, and child can speak, presumably in Sanskrit, I suppose, says to the emperor, I know your question and I shall tell you the answer. Many centuries ago, in this village here, lived a poor widow. and she had she had 4 children, and she was finding it difficult to make ends meet. She would beg for food and bring back. And so there came a time when they had starved for 3 days. They hadn't had any food, and the children were very hungry. And the poor mother finally got 4 chapatis, 4 pieces of bread. And she didn't want anything for herself. She just gave the 4 pieces of bread to her four little sons. At that time comes a guest. So this is a typical Indian story. A guest comes, and then if a guest comes, you have to feed the guest. And the mother said, but I have nothing to feed you, sir. I had only 4 pieces of bread, but I can't give them to you because I've already given them to my children who are very hungry, and it belongs to them now. You have to ask them. The guest said, I am very hungry. I need that bread. So he goes to the eldest son, who's just a little boy, maybe 10 or 11 years old. Give me your piece of bread. And the boy said, what will I eat? Will I eat leaves, dry leaves? I'm giving you the piece of bread, and will I eat dry leaves? And so he asks so he did not give the piece of bread. And the baby said, that first boy, he is born as this yogi whom you met. He spends his days eating dry leaves. Anyway, the guest went to the second son, who was even younger, and asked for the piece of bread, and the son refused. Little boy refused. I'm hungry. If I give that to you, what will I eat? Will I eat ashes? And that boy, he's born as this yogi who lives eating ashes. And then he went to the youngest, the littlest kid, the third kid, who was even younger, and asked, can I have your piece of bread? And the little boy said, I'll die if I give you this piece of bread. And that little boy, O emperor, I am, and I died, and I am born, and every time I'm born and I die the same day. All these years, I keep getting born and dying the same day. Today also, I know I will die. Then he went to the last little kid, the guest, and said, give me your piece of bread, who was maybe just 5 years old. Even before he could ask, the little boy held out that piece of bread and gave it to him, that chapati. And the guest was satisfied, and the little boy, the youngest son, he perished of hunger that very night. And the baby said, oh emperor, that little boy you are. He went straight away to heaven for centuries together, and he was born in this life as an emperor who attains enlightenment, whose daughter is the mother of the universe, and God is the son-in-law of that same little boy. So that's a very beautiful story. But the whole point is the power of karma. The whole point of the story. Luckily, by that time, the sunset was near and the story came to an end. So but it's so, the whole point of the story is that karma is very powerful. Another point, another monk made, it's important to note, to activate good karma, effort is necessary. I'll tell you, this is another monk, Ramananda Saraswati said, when you serve rice in India, you have huge pots of rice. So you need a huge ladle, and they are metal ladles. You have to break the rice and then bring it out and then serve it. We put it in smaller buckets. And at that time, as a novice in our monastery, that was one of my duties. It was hard work, and it was very hot and humid there. So these huge, giant cauldrons of rice would come. And from that, you have to bring out the rice and put it into smaller buckets, which are then taken for serving food to people who are eating. Now, this monk gave up an example of karma. He says, if there is a lot of rice, in your big cauldron, in the big pot, even if you put the ladle in just a little bit, a lot of rice will come out. Just a little bit, you try, a lot of rice will come out. If there isn't much left, then you have to put it in really deep into the big pot, into the huge cauldron, and from the bottom you can get some rice. And if there is no rice left in your cauldron, in Hindi, he said, I can't translate into English. He said, uska sirf thand thand shabd hi hoga. He'll just get a clanging sound. No matter how much he puts his ladle, inserts it into the huge cauldron, there's just darkness inside. There's nothing. It's just a clanging sound. But the point is, you must use the ladle to try to get something. Then only your karma is activated. And no effort goes to waste. If there's nothing happening now, it will happen in the future. Okay, so this is the background. Let me now go into the verses.